Guantanamo Bay Detainees by Max Williams.
Ryan Noble.
Hang on.
Might not be clicked on it because you're clicking on other things on that.
Your mouse has to be on that
Is
screen.
that mirror? There you go. Okay. Now.
You have to like click.
I see
Click.
click on the other.
Oh,
There you
okay,
go.
there we go. So the civil liberties violated in this case was the Fifth Amendment, where you cannot be detained without legal reason. They were just taking these people and they were saying, "Oh, we're accusing you of terrorism," and they were like, and without any proof, they just threw them into these detainment camps, and then they wouldn't even charge them. They would just let them sit there, and then they wouldn't let them charge them. But they had no right to appeal, no right to a lawyer, and they just had no rights. So they were at the mercy of the U.S. justice system. Until finally the Supreme Court case, Boudin versus Bush, which I will, gave them finally the right to habeas corpus, so they could actually appeal it.
So this has been going on since when the first people arrived. It was in 2002, and they earned the right to habeas corpus in 2008. So that means that they were being tortured in these camps unlawfully for 6 years.
So the other amendments violated for the Bill of Rights was the Sixth Amendment, right to a speedy trial. Obviously, if you're sitting there 6 years without a trial, that's not at all fast in any definition. The Eighth Amendment, where you cannot have cruel and unusual punishment. These some of these people were being waterboarded for information. And the Ninth Amendment, where laws cannot be created to take away the rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution, such as the right to a trial and all that. And then I didn't have enough room to put this here, but the 14th Amendment, right to a trial, trial by jury. Or no, sorry, I'm not. Sorry. There. So then here's just some of these court cases about Guantanamo Bay. So U.S. citizens cannot be held indefinitely without charges, even if they were labeled enemy combatants. But since this was on U.S. soil, they were considered U.S. citizens, but not given these rights. And then finally, Rasul versus Bush allowed them to challenge their detention in 2004. And then finally, in 2005, the government could not indefinitely detain these illegal immigrants. And also in 2005, the military commissions, it was set up as like for the process for the detainees, and it finally explained that they are outside the president's power. So all these laws that were created were basically invalid until Boudin versus Bush. So this is just continued. So here is the Military Commissions Act, which took away the rights. So it says, no court, justice, or judge shall have jurisdiction to hear or consider an application for a writ of habeas corpus filed by or on behalf of an alien detained by the United States. So Guantanamo Bay detainees who have been determined by the United States to have been properly detained as an enemy combatant or is awaiting such determination, but they had no proof that they were enemy combatants. And here's just an image of one of the detainment camps.
So, for the needs of the government or the citizens, the needs of the government were put first because on January 11, 2002, the first prisoners were brought from Afghanistan to Guantanamo Bay. The men had no access to a court to determine their legal rights. The prisoners were labeled without precise investigation as terrorists when they first entered. The prisoners had no evidence laid out against them, so they just were immediately labeled. And the needs of the government.
So, right in there, so I think they had, I don't think they were justified at all because they had no right to an appeal or lawyer guaranteed by the Bill of Rights. And they were just undermining, rights in the Middle East, like Afghanistan and that stuff. They were just taking away all the civil liberties that these people should have, which ironically is what the U.S. is fighting for out there. And almost nearly half the amendments in the Bill of Rights were violated. There was at least 4 that were violated in the Guantanamo Bay case, which I went over in the previous slides. And basically, this was all also under the USA Patriot Act, which I'm not going to go into the full detail, but it basically took away rights of people who were suspected enemy combatants and or terrorists. So I really don't agree with what they did.
So the impact that it had on the American citizens. So the citizens, when this happened, after it came out, the citizens looked at the government as secretive because the government chose to keep the 20 of the first prisoners' names secret when they first arrived from everyone. And the citizens thought that the government had judged too quickly because when they first entered, they were labeled completely. They were judged without trial, no evidence. The government was described by Supreme Court and a few of the citizens as cruel and unthoughtful. And the Constitution was switched on and off as the Supreme Court declared that if the Constitution switches on and off, this could lead to a regime. Overall, the impact that left many citizens is that the government could have handled other past criminals like this without any evidence against them. The government's actions left imprints on many citizens, and it may never be forgotten.
So, yeah, that's it. And then here's a bibliography. I also just remembered the 14th Amendment, innocent until proven guilty.
Questions? You can explain what is habeas corpus?
It's the right to you have the body, isn't it?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
We'll explain in our presentation.
You and your
just
own person.
yeah, we have a presentation.
What was the original
It's Latin
intent?
for you have the body, and it just and it basically means that you have a right to challenge your legal reasoning for detainment.
You can't be held without being read some as to
Right.
accusation or specific reason why you're being detained. You can't just lock them up, throw away the key type of mentality. Right. What exactly? Why were people deemed like? You talked about this a little bit, but not in much depth. How many of these people, like, what could get you detained and put here? Because you talked about enemy combatant, but like what? Because not every person detained, and it was found that not every person detained was actually a threat to anything, right? So what is the whole controversy
The
about?
whole controversy is anything as long if you look suspicious, and the U.S. soldiers thought you were related to the Taliban, they would just they would arrest you without any proof if you just looked suspicious.
Where in the United States, around
No.
the world?
Near Guantanamo Bay, in like the Middle East.
Well, Guantanamo Bay's in Cuba,
Oh, Cuba. Well, they were.
so they were brought from other military. Well, maybe. Right. What were some of the hot zone areas when the Guantanamo Bay started opening? Where was the U.S. involved?
That would have been Iran or Iraq. I can't remember which one. Iraq.
Okay. Iraq, and then they went into Afghanistan, right?
Mhm.
But they were also going into people's homes, like around the world, that were suspected of what?
Terrorism.
Maybe enemy combatants, threats to national security, which you guys, I don't think you touched upon that. This whole concept. How is the government being protected?
They were just protecting themselves, and they were doing what they thought was in the best interest for the U.S., but they were just taking away everyone's rights.
Were there some bad apples that they sure?
There
So
there
it worked
have
a
to
little
be, but
bit.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
the thing. Like, if you see, I think they used an example one. If you see worm in an apple, you throw away the entire apple. Something like that. Like it's like when I don't know when someone bombs a city because there's a bunch of bad people in it. They're also killing a bunch of innocent
So
people.
collateral damage.
Collateral damage. Yeah.
Okay. So what? I'm so confused as to like, how do you guys feel about this?
Well, I already touched over in that one slide that I disagreed with it, and what do you feel like? I think while yes they did do like one or two they did lock up like one or two like really bad people who were a legitimate threat to national security. They just took away the rights of a lot of innocent people.
And they had no evidence laid out against them, so you really didn't know if they were a bad apple.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Chuck?
I
Go ahead.
was just wondering if you go forward a couple of slides. I think there was like a link to something. What was that about?
Oh no, that's back. This is just a link to the full Military Commissions Act.
Okay.
This is just the excerpt that was
Okay, yeah.
paper.
So I'm wondering, do these like you were saying that the government was taking away all the rights of these people because these people were American citizens, but if they're being arrested overseas, they aren't American citizens.
Yeah, they were taking them onto American property, which was making them Americans, which was putting on American grounds and giving them the rights to the Constitution.
Okay. Anybody else? Yep. Did you have more? No?
No.
Okay. Thank you guys.